Hello and welcome to another lecture from History of Journalism. I'm Professor Harper and we're going to talk about media and technology today. And you know, it's important to understand, and I think that all of you realize that technology plays an important role in how media is developed and what media present. So to start out, there are two kind of overriding theories of the relationship between media, society, and technology. The first one is known as social constructivism, and the second is known as technological determinism. Now, those are pretty fancy words, so let me try to break it down. So with social constructivism, society plays the most significant role in technological change. The technology is seen and must be seen in the context of larger economic, political, and social context. That means that society needs technology and asks for it to develop media. The second one is technological determinism, and essentially what that says is it looks at it from the opposite way almost, that a new technology will come into place and that will affect society, so that society plays a less significant role in the initial development of the media. As being transparent, I tend to follow the philosophy of technological determinism because I think that sweeping changes, for example, like movable text and type in the Gutenberg press came about, and that then affected book publishing and and that technology allowed people to print massive amounts of material, made it available to the public in the vernacular, in English rather than Latin, or German rather than Latin. But I'm willing to listen to any and all sides of the equation. So here's a basic timeline, just to give you an idea of the development of media and also how technology and society interact. So 100,000 BC, human speech develops. In 4000 BC, writing starts to appear. And then in 105 AD, paper was developed in China. If you're sitting watching television at a dinner party or sitting at a bar and you want to win a bet, almost all technology started in China. It doesn't mean that it dominated it for all time, but China was very instrumental in the development of a lot of early technologies. In 1450, Johannes Gutenberg in Germany developed movable type. Now, a lot of times you'll hear that Gutenberg developed the printing press. Well, that's not right. He basically created movable type, which allowed you to move the type around and reuse it over and over again, which made it much cheaper and much more cost-effective to print materials. In 1837, Samuel Morse perfected the telegraph. That made it possible to send information over long distances rather than by a horse or a letter carrier. It basically allowed the transmission of information much more quickly. In 1876, Alexander Graham Bell introduced the telephone. Again, that technology made it faster, better, to provide information throughout the United States and the world. In 1901, Guglielmo Marconi received a radio signal sent from England to Newfoundland, and then in 1903, Lee De Forest invented the Audion, or the triode, for radio and sound waves to be used together. And this is important because here's a technology that was developed for business and military uses. And what it became is that it was adapted to provide radio for the masses. In 1925 and 27, we have the development of television by Zworykin and Farnsworth, which essentially, Farnsworth made it adaptable so that images could be made into electricity and that enabled a much better television distribution system. It wasn't until after World War II, however, that television came into play throughout the United States. When it comes to computers, 1946, ENIAC was the first electronic and digital computer, which was introduced at the University of Pennsylvania. It's interesting that the actual place where it was on the border between Strawberry Mansion and East Falls along Ridge Avenue. So if you drive along there just by Laurel Hill Cemetery, you'll see that sign. And then in 1949, cable television started operation. And what cable television did is because television waves could not go through mountains or over mountains and into valleys, and could only go, through a system to be boosted to isolated communities like Ithaca, New York, where I used to teach. It had to be bounced from system to system, and then receiver to receiver, and then into that locale. In 1969, the U.S. Department of Defense introduces the predecessor of the Internet called DARPANET, and it was basically to exchange information among scientists from 4 different universities. It wasn't until 1987 that the Internet actually began operation, but you really needed to know what you were doing back then, because it was essentially typing in code and getting things. And then a web browser was created at the University of Illinois called Mosaic in 1993. That was the predecessor of Netscape. Netscape essentially was a great browser, but couldn't compete with other platforms that were developed by Microsoft and Google. So that's what we have for today, and we'll see you online. Thank you very much.